First, though, is Hillary Clinton passing the buck on Benghazi, the former Secretary of State, in the middle of a media blitz for a brand new book, and asked point blank, could she have done anything differently when 4 Americans were killed in the terror attack on our consulate? That answer in a matter of moments. Welcome here to America's Newsroom. I'm Bill Hemmer. Martha's got some time out. Welcome back, Uma.
Oh, it's great to be here, Bill. Thank you very much. I'm Uma Pemaraju, and Clinton speaking about Benghazi in an exclusive interview with ABC's Diane Sawyer, saying the seriousness of the security concerns in Benghazi was never brought to her attention.
But does she take responsibility for what happened? Well, kind of, sort of. Take a listen.
Well, I certainly would give anything on earth if this had not happened. And I certainly would wish that we had made some of the changes that came to our attention to make as a result of the investigation. But I also am clear in my own mind that we had a system, and that system, of course, ended with me. But I take responsibility, but I was not making security decisions. I think it would be a mistake for a Secretary of State to sit and say, okay, let's go through all 270 posts and let me decide what should be done. That to me is inappropriate, where the experience and the expertise lies elsewhere.
All right, Barbara York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and a Fox News contributor. Barbara, good morning to you. Diane Sawyer pushed her on this. How do you think she's answering this question?
Well, I think she's answering like she's answered all along, which is to deny all personal responsibility. She was asked whether she personally missed an opportunity to prevent these deaths. She said no. She was asked whether she failed to appreciate the nature and extent of the threat, and she said no. And then she uttered those classic words that you just heard: I take responsibility, but I was not making security decisions. So this is what been her position all along, that she, as the person in charge of the State Department, bore no personal responsibility for what happened.
I take responsibility, but I was not making security decisions. She's going to be asked about that again, because she's doing more interviews, Byron.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing you're going to hear a lot, she did it last night and she'll do it throughout her interviews, is that she cites the State Department's Accountability Review Board investigation into all of this, which essentially absolved her. But we all know that the Accountability Review Board investigators never interviewed Secretary Clinton. So she's going to have an opportunity to tell the story that the Accountability Review Board never asked her to tell.
And, you know, she mentioned that in a couple of the interviews she's done so far. I don't know if there was a follow-up question to say, but you were not interviewed for that internal review. Perhaps that's forthcoming, maybe with Brett or Greta here. In the meantime, will she testify at Republican hearings? Here's her answer.
Her answer to that was extraordinary. She said she doesn't know.
Byron, let's listen to the answer, and I'll ask you about it, okay? First this, watch.
Well, that's going to be up to the people running the hearing.
But if they ask you?
We'll see what they decide to do, how they conduct themselves. But what I do not appreciate is politicizing this at the expense of 4 dead Americans. That's not what we used to do in this country.
What'd you make of that?
Well, the answer from Republicans will be there's this thing called a subpoena, and if they issue one to her, then that she should come testify. Her answer was really pretty extraordinary. Basically, she was saying she will have to wait and see if the committee lives up to some unspecified standard of behavior, in which she would then speak to them. I think they're going to have a very, very different view of that matter.
There was another question about when they left the White House after 8 years. She says, I mean, they were basically dead broke. Now, you know that you've got speaking fees in the offing, you've got book deals, your husband will get book deals. I mean, these advances for their books were in the multi-millions of dollars. How do you think that goes over, and will some perceive that to be a gaffe, Byron?
It goes over really badly, and she's going to have to do a lot of explaining. And by the way, the money was not just in the offing, it was already in hand. In 1999, more than a year before the Clintons left the White House, the Democratic money man Terry McAuliffe gave them $1.35 million to buy a house with. They could pay him back later when they got more money, which they did. In 2000, again, before they left the White House, Mrs. Clinton signed an $8 million book deal. So they had money actually in hand. But the larger issue of it being a gaffe, and remember she said they needed money for mortgages for houses, plural, that never goes over very well with voters. She's going to be explaining this one for quite a while.
I think it's very interesting, all these interviews, and more to come. Thank you, Byron. Our lead coverage from Byron York in Washington. Appreciate it.